Hello, YouTube sophisticates. I am Sean Stoger, and this is Crazy Native Philosophy. I've got something incredible for you today. This is another one that took me months to work out, and so I think you're really going to enjoy it. Today's video is called The Greatest Ceremony You'll Ever Do. Now, my primary motivation for making this channel is the next generation. So you, the next generation, are also the primary focus of this video. Now, I'm about to tell you things that I wish someone had told me in my teens and my 20s, and it's my sincerest wish that you younger ones will find something of value here. And hopefully this will help you to connect with your traditional ways. For non-native people, if you understand the concepts that I'm going to discuss, you will see how this applies to you and enriches your life as well. So many people, both native and non-native, talk about Native American spirituality or American Indian religions, and often see that as an alternative to organized or mainstream religions. Additionally, people who are unfamiliar with traditional ways also tend to believe they need all of this stuff, right? People think you need a chanupa or a sacred pipe or an anipi or a sweat lodge or a hamlecha or a crying for a sacred dream or a vision quest, right? And all these other trappings, like buffalo skulls and eagle fans and beaded necklaces or fancy vests or skirts for women, and many other things, right? So it's common for people to think that you need all this stuff in order to live a spiritual life, or they believe that by doing these things, it will make them more of a spiritual person. So I'm here to tell you young ones that I don't believe in Native American spirituality or American Indian religions, and I'm also here to say that you don't need any of that stuff. Now, why do I say this? So I held those beliefs when I was young, and perhaps I truly did need those things to help me connect to culture and traditional ways. These things were definitely intriguing to me in my teens and my 20s, and I wanted to be immersed in all of it. So I'm not telling you to avoid ceremonies or to not have things that help you connect to culture, right? What I am saying is all these things mean nothing if you are not right in the head, and especially if you are not right in the heart. So ceremonies and sacred items are just tools that help us do certain things and ultimately help us become a certain type of person. No ceremony or sacred object is ever more important than the heart and soul that is behind it. As for spirituality and religion, I don't believe in them because those are civilized ideas, and they're not tribal ideas, and therefore they really don't mean anything, to me at least. Now, most indigenous languages, at least that I know of, don't have words for spirituality or religion. And as a crazy native philosopher, I naturally ask the question, why is that, right? So the answer becomes obvious when we begin to examine the fundamental differences between tribal cultures and civilized cultures. So I should state, when I use the word civilized, I'm solely referring to the root word in the Latin, civis, which essentially means city dweller. And that's the only way I mean it. I do not attach any value judgments to civilization or civilized. And I definitely do not see it as better than or more advanced or superior to tribal societies in any way. So our question becomes, why do civilized cultures have words like spirituality and religion, and tribal cultures do not? So in order for a city-state to exist, several things must be present, or the city will not function, survive, or prosper. Perhaps the greatest of these is city life is dependent upon its citizens, or the people who live in cities, to be narrowly trained and specialized in a specialized trade or skill. Now, whether it is Uruk in ancient Mesopotamia in 4000 BC, or it is Chicago of today's United States of America in 2025 AD, the people who live and work in civilized cultures have a specific job, and that is their primary focus. By focusing on their specific job, the civilized person loses sight and becomes unskilled in other jobs. So this is why my tax accountant takes his car to my auto mechanic, and my auto mechanic takes his taxes to my tax accountant. This is also why civilized people or the people who live in cities have separate words for religion and spirituality, because these two are jobs, and they are performed by specialists in civilized cultures. So when a mechanic or an accountant needs some sort of spiritual fulfillment or enlightenment or alignment or whatever, they go to a religious place and they see a religious expert. Now, from this, we see that religion and spirituality are separated from everything else in civilized society. And in civilizations, we have farmers and we have priests. We have doctors and we have monks. We have soldiers and we have spiritual gurus, right? These are all separate from one another. And this is a fundamental requirement of a city-state's existence, survival, and functioning. And it has been this way for at least 10,000 years and probably a lot longer. Now, in tribal societies, excuse me, in tribal societies, there was no separation. To survive daily, annually, or generationally, tribal people who are living close to the earth had to possess at least a basic capability in every single skill that ensured their own and group survival. And this also meant that tribal people were required to be connected to everything around them in the natural world. So yes, some people were better hunters and others were better clothing makers and some were better storytellers than others. But if a tribal person specialized in one of these to the exclusion of others, like a city dweller does, right? And suddenly they were, separated from their tribe, they would most likely die. So everybody in a tribe needed to be at least minimally skilled at everything and connected to the natural living world around them. So for example, in a tribe, everyone could hunt. Yes, some people did this primarily, but everyone could do it, regardless of age or gender. This notion of a division of labor based on gender roles is primarily a civilized idea and really has no place in tribal societies. Today, there are even some native people who have latched onto this idea. The academics who came up with such outlandish theories typically have no wilderness survival training or experience, and thus see everything from a separated, civilized bias, right? In civilization, things were separated because they had to be. This was not so much the case in tribal societies. Yes, there were things that men generally did, and there were things that women generally did, but these were not exclusive or given value rankings, right? Everyone's efforts were valued and contributed to the greater good of the community. From the smallest child that brought home some fish or rabbits or firewood, to the immobile elder that could spot danger long before it happens or educates and entertains and watches over the little ones. We thought as a group, not as individuals or roles or genders. Everyone sewed clothes, helped with childcare, fought off invaders, brought home food, and did everything else. So the idea of man's work or women's work, or even patriarchy and matriarchy, is largely colonizer concepts. And I've yet to find a tribe that has any words for patriarchy or matriarchy in their original language. These ideas are imported separatist ideas from a civilized culture, and they are not indigenous. Everybody was at least minimally skilled in everything, and this was a survival necessity, right? You have to be, both individually and as a group. The hard divisions of civilization were not present in historic tribal societies. Not only did this apply to life-sustaining skills, but it also applied to every other aspect of life. So there were no hard lines that separated religion from fishing or basket making or artwork or medicine. Right? We see from a historic tribal vantage point that there was no such thing as religion or spirituality, because these were inseparable from everything else in life. In the simplest terms, civilizations made religion and spirituality into a thing, right? And these things were separate from all other things in a civilized culture. In historic tribal cultures, there were no spirituality and religion because these were not things, right? They were a part of everything in life, from daily activities to everything in the natural world. So historically, indigenous people might ask, what isn't religion? Or what isn't spiritual, right? Even the idea that the Great Spirit could be separate from anything in existence would have been incomprehensible. No tribe that I know of has words for religion or spirituality, because even this idea makes no sense it just makes no sense. So to an indigenous person prior to colonization, trying to convince them that a rock or stone doesn't have a spirit would have seemed humorous or crazy or nonsensical. This is the polar opposite of today's civilized mentality, where you would be hard-pressed to convince someone that a rock or stone does have a spirit. Today, when other people use the word spirituality, or they say they're a spiritual person, I tend to find this odd or slightly funny, because this is a separatist idea, right? It's a civilized idea. It is not a historically tribal idea. To say something is spiritual means that there is something that is not spiritual. And I don't even understand how that could be possible. So of course you're spiritual. Who isn't spiritual, right? Now, the other reason that I say I do not believe in Native American spirituality or religion is because the idea of believing in a religion also stems from civilized cultures as well. Beliefs do not require evidence, and thus can be changed at a drop of a hat. So you believe it's raining outside, but you walk outside and you realize you believe wrong, right? When you know something, it is because you have evidence to support it. So I know it's raining outside because I walk outside and I'm getting soaked in the rain. So I know it's raining. If someone were to be standing outside in the downpour and they say, I believe it's raining out, we would think they're being a smartass, right? We know it's raining because we have evidence to support it. Now, modern day religions and spirituality are founded on beliefs. That means they have no evidence. People read a book or a sacred scroll, they sit in a church or in some temple, they listen to a specialist that says, believe what I am telling you, because I have read the books and the scrolls and it talks about the rain. Right? But civilized people still have no evidence, right? They only have someone else's word for it. This is why civilized people are left questioning, and as a result, they must form beliefs about God. Some people believe, others don't believe, and others just don't know. So the people who are really religious say that they have faith. And faith is just the complete trust in your beliefs without any evidence. Faith is just absolute belief. Now, indigenous people did not have beliefs or faith. about the rain. Right? They experienced it. A person conducted their own research, and they came to the same conclusions that their ancestors had reached for countless generations. Our way was practical and experiential. We did not believe or have faith in God. We knew God. We knew the Creator like we knew it was raining outside. We knew God because our ancestors told us to do things in a certain way, and when we did, we had the same kinds of experiences. In other words, instead of just taking an expert's word for it, we went outside, we stood in the rain, and we got soaked. We knew it was raining because we were standing in it. We had first-hand experience. And these teachings were passed on to us generationally. But covertly woven into the fabric of civilized cultures is language and terminology that paints a picture of indigenous people as being primitive hunter-gatherers from a subhuman oral tradition and subscribing to a mythology, right? All of these words are used to minimize, invalidate, and ultimately discard the life ways of tribal people. So the practices that traditional Native people used to restore balance and build personal strength were dismissed as either unevolved or akin to superstitious witchcraft, compared to the Eurocentric culture mandating its superiority over tribal people from atop its self-absorbed high horse. What Western colonizers and modern academics often fail to see that tribal people living close to the earth had to be extremely practical, logical, and rational. If they weren't, and they relied on superstition, imagination, and mythology, an entire tribe could have been wiped out in a single winter. Any person with wilderness survival training and experience will quickly attest you absolutely have to be practical, logical, and rational, or you can die very quickly in the backcountry. And Native people back in the day were not solely concerned with their own survival. We were risking the lives of our families and our communities on our knowledge and our decisions. Consider it this way. Would you want to risk the life of your family on something an expert told you to believe in, or would you rather risk their lives, the lives of your family, on something you tried out for yourself, your ancestors tried out for themselves, and you know it works based on personal and generational evidence? This practical, logical, rational, and dare I even say scientific approach was a necessity for everyday life, and it is from this way of life that we developed what outsiders label as Native American spirituality. In reality, it is not really spiritual at all. It is just an indigenous scientific method. Look at it from the opposite perspective. Why would any group of people whose daily, annual, and generational survival depended upon being rational, logical, and practical pass on a ceremony like a sweat lodge if it didn't work? Why would they pass on a pipe for generations if that didn't work? Why pass on something like crying for a sacred dream if it relied on imagination, superstition, and mythology? All of these were tried and tested for thousands of generations, and group survival depended upon the outcome. Why risk it all on a belief? The simplest answer is we didn't. We had direct personal experience. We had evidence collected over generations. And so, these ways and ideas were tried, tested, and refined over millennia. The result was the creation of basic tools a person could use to restore balance, connect, build strength, and most importantly, serve the people of their community. But ultimately, we reach the conclusion that it is not the things or the stuff that is important, it is how they help us to make the world around us better for everybody, including our non-human brothers and sisters. All of this may be easier to explain using the medicine wheel. Now, the medicine wheel is a Native American symbol used by many tribes, with slight variations. In future videos, we'll look at deeper meanings, but for now, a superficial examination is all that's needed. The medicine wheel is made up of a circle, 2 lines, and 4 colors. All of these have multiple layers of meaning. It is important to see that no aspect on the hoop is bigger or smaller or more important than any other. Both lines have equal length and thickness, and each color has no more or less space than any other. To put this simply, everything on the medicine wheel is balanced. Quickly, we could say the medicine wheel represents the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 ages of the human life cycle, the 4 times of day, the 4 skin pigmentations of human being. But just for today, we'll look at these 4 aspects, and that is the mind, body, emotion, and spirit. Again, look at the shape of the medicine wheel and see how all 4 aspects are balanced and equal. There is no single aspect that is greater than any other or less than any other. All 4 aspects are harmonious with each other. This is critical to understand. So if a person tells me that they are a spiritual person or that they are a spiritual leader, I find this very funny. To me, this is no different than saying I'm a mind person or I'm a body leader, right? This is favoring one aspect of the medicine wheel and disregarding all the rest. It is imbalanced and an expression of that person's ego. The person saying these things either wants other people to see them a certain way, or they lack confidence and are trying to convince themselves. They believe that spiritual is better or higher or above everything else. Now, this is civilized philosophy, right? That comes from the pyramid hierarchy, where priests and religious experts existed on a higher pyramid social structure than the common person. So when people tell me that they are a spiritual person, what I hear them saying is, I'm better than other people, right? But what they're really telling me is, I'm imbalanced and my ego is rampaging. Spiritual is only one aspect of the 4 on the medicine wheel, and it should be equal, balanced, and harmonious with all the rest. When you are trying to ignore or avoid one aspect, or you give grandiose importance to one aspect, the rest become weaker. And this manifests as illness or injury. The other thing to note on the medicine wheel is the 2 lines. Now, some natives like to say that we are circular thinkers and Western society is full of linear thinkers. I'll talk about this in future videos, but that is BS, right? If this were true, our ancestors would have just drawn a hoop and would have called it a day. But they didn't. They made a hoop with 2 lines. And this means that both the circle and the lines are important. And it shows the need to be balanced and harmonized, or shows the need for those to be balanced and harmonized with each other. So in order for a person to be a balanced human being, they must be able to think in circles and as well as lines, and know when to do which. Today, I would say our society is full of linear thinkers, and that is why our world is imbalanced. This is why we are experiencing so many problems that we see all around us in the world today, right? The 2 lines on the medicine wheel represent the polarities. And what polarities, you might ask? Well, any and all polarities. Yes, no, man, woman, Democrat, Republican, black, white, red road, black road, civilized, tribal. anything you can think of. The medicine wheel teaches us that neither of these is to be valued or prioritized, or even dwelled upon, right? All oppositions must be balanced. The entirety of the medicine wheel shows us that both lines are different and yet equal in every way. And if you pick a favorite or assign more value to one over the other, this leads to an imbalance. An imbalance leads to injury or illness. When all aspects of the medicine wheel are harmonized and balanced, and when you exist between the polarities, you become centered, right? This is chokan, right? A center of the medicine wheel, it's the center of the medicine wheel or the center of the universe. When you reach the medicine wheel or the center of the medicine wheel, you're done, right? It's game over and you win, right? This is the illusion of the pyramid hierarchy, that when you get to the top, it's over. It's done. You've arrived, right? It's all one big gigantic lie. Unfortunately, there never is or never will be an end or a state where you are harmonized, balanced, or centered. Your entire life will always be harmonizing, balancing, and centering. You will always be in motion, and the world around you will always be in motion. The medicine wheel inside you and the medicine wheel outside of you is always moving. And it will always require effort to maintain balance, harmony, and centeredness. And so, it is never over, it's never done, and you never arrive. Your whole life is and will be balancing, harmonizing, and centering. But like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So being in the center of the universe is like being on a tightrope. When you get to the center of the medicine wheel, you develop yourself and your relationships with everything in existence to where you make small adjustments instead of big, giant, dramatic moves, right? Great tightrope walkers make small tweaks in their balance and not big, severe movements, right? The people who make these big, grand, dramatic gestures are the ones that fall off. Their life becomes a never-ending cycle of stepping on the tightrope, making big moves, back and forth, falling off, climbing back up, and the cycle begins again. This is a lot of big movement, a lot of big energy, a lot of big falls, and always results in a lot of big injury and a lot of big illness. And this happens over and over again for their entire lives. And they never end up really going anywhere. So this is why we see adults in their 40s still acting like they are kids in high school. They are stuck in the cycle of bold drama with big problems, big consequences, and it just keeps going round and round. As young adults, you will see this happening a lot with the peers around you. But as you start to gain a little maturity and wisdom, you will learn that balancing, harmonizing, and centering first starts inside you, and then it happens on the rope. This is why our wise elders are this way. They have a lifetime of practice and eventually learned that it's better to make small adjustments than big ones. So small adjustments to balance mean you don't fall off as often, and it means less injury and less illness. So because life is constantly in motion, you never make it, you're never done, and you never arrive. The world around you is always changing, and you are always changing. Life is constantly an act of balancing, harmonizing, and centering. This is also not like the New Age religion or spirituality that preaches to go within, right? That is just masturbation. To understand the fundamental difference of this New Age go within philosophy and the indigenous life perspective, any person can do this simple experiment. Go outside and reach up and try to touch the sky. It's best to do this on a day with some clouds in the sky or at night with stars. So there's like some contrast. When you are standing there and you're reaching up, you see how short your arms are and how far away the sky is, or how far the clouds are away from them. And it should begin to dawn on you that you are a very small thing on a very big planet. You're just an ant on the anthill. By going within, you are focusing your attention on something so small instead of the infinite cosmos around you. The reason the old ones didn't preach this doctrine of go within is because it's ultimately self-centered. When you are in the center of the medicine wheel, you are ikche wachasha, or ikche wiyan. Right? Wachasha means man, wiyan means woman. Ikche has no straight translation to English, but it means something like natural, sincere, genuine, authentic, real, or common. So when you live at the center of the universe in Chokan, you are not on the red road and you are not on the black road. You're not a nerd or a gym bro or a empath or a spiritual person. At the center, you are all of these at once because you are none of these at once. You just are. You're just a regular old dude or dudette. You are ikche, or natural, sincere, genuine, authentic, real, and 1,000% yourself always. This is why I say you don't need a chanupa or a sacred pipe. You don't need an anipi or a sweat lodge or a hamblecha or a crying for a dream or a vision quest, right? Because when you are ikche wachasha or ikche wiyan, you don't need a chanupa to connect with Tankashala, right, or the creator. You are connected. You don't need an anipi to purify yourself. You're able to purify. You don't need a hamblecha to receive a sacred dream, right? The creator sends you what you need. Getting to the center of the medicine wheel may take a hell of a lot longer and may be a hell of a lot harder. But you don't need any of these things to do it. However, the ceremonies and sacred objects can help you do that. The problem is people use these things to help, and then they get fixated on the things and not fixated on the purpose of those things, which is to get others, or to get you and others to Chokan. Right? These are only there to help you and others become natural human beings that live life in a natural, centered, balanced, and centered way. When people focus on the things instead of on their purpose, this is when we see the fakes and the frauds and the egomaniacs and the wannabe cult leaders rise up. They believe the things have the power, and that is why their ceremonies feel plastic or like they're just going through the motions, because there's no heart in it. They focus on the things and believe that the things have power. They have forgotten or overlooked, or they never learned that there is only one power, and that is Tankashala, right? The creator. This is why you can go to a ceremony and find ceremony leaders or helpers and participants that know tons and tons and tons of stuff, way more than I'll ever know in my lifetime. But they act self-centered or petty or biased, or they're covertly or overtly negative. They know everything there is to know about traditional ways and ceremonies and sacred pipes and history and culture. They know everything but the most important thing, Tankashala. Yet many of these people are carrying the sacred pipe, and they're at every event or ceremony, or they want to be running the show, right? They want to be seen as the big shot. They want to live this real spiritual life and be known far and wide as the great spiritual leader. Some want to have a ceremony business where they get paid to be a celebrity and put on a theatrical performance. If they were in Chokan, they wouldn't think or behave this way. But they are imbalanced. So their view is clouded and they cannot see what is important and what is not important. And if they understood this, then they would see that it's better to be in the center of the medicine wheel with no chunupa than imbalanced and carrying one. They would know it's better to be standing in the center of the universe than it is to be coming out of a sweat lodge and be even more imbalanced afterwards. These things are not as important as the heart and soul behind it and what they're used for, right? So in Ikcheawoglaka, or the Lakota common language, the word for ceremony is Wichoha, right? The word for life is Wichoni. Without going into big detail, you can see that these two words are very closely related, and that should be immediately apparent. Wichoni and Wichoha should tell you that your life is like a ceremony. In fact, your life is the most important ceremony that you will ever do. How you live your life is more important than any sacred object or activity. People's minds get confused and the activity becomes more important. The object becomes more important. But you are the sacred object. Your life is a sacred activity. Your life is the most important ceremony you will ever do. Isn't it funny when people say that they're going to go fast to show the creators and the spirits that they are humble? When I hear people say this, I laugh. To me, they're saying that they're trying to sneak one by the creator and the spirits. So what? I can go around being a total jackass for 6 months, but if I fast for 4 days, the Great Spirit and all the helpers will totally forget those past 6 months. They'll be like, yep, I guess we got it all wrong. Here I thought Sean was a real son of a bitch, but he fasted for 4 days, so I guess he must really be humble. That's my point, right? If your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul are not in the center of the medicine wheel, you are just bullshitting. You're not going to pick up the sacred pipe and do jack shit with it, except go through the motions. Yeah, you might look real cool, and to outsiders who don't know anything, what is happening, you might be able to fool them. But you're not going to fool Tankashala, and you're not going to fool the people who are standing in Chokan. So people think, if I have all this stuff and I do all these things, then that makes me a big shot or sacred or holy or a spiritual person or a spiritual leader. No Chanupa can make you sacred. No Anipi can make you sacred. No Hamblecha can make you sacred. Not even how you live your life can make you sacred. Only the Creator can do that. Now I'm going to repeat that. Only the Creator can make you sacred. It's not up to you or me or some fancy pants authority or some highly respected elder on the res or some medicine man. No one. Only the Creator can make you sacred. But you can be Ikche. You can live most of your life in Chokan. You can live life in a balanced, harmonized, and centered way. And that is up to you. That is a gift that the Great Spirit has given each and every one of us. That is what our elders referred to as living in a good way. You could be a natural person, living naturally within a natural environment and the cosmos. And that is Ikche. You do not need a pipe, you do not need a sweat lodge, and you do not need to cry for a sacred dream. You can have and do all these things, but if you are an imbalanced human being, it's all just stuff. All you need to do is get the medicine wheel that's inside of you connected with the medicine wheel outside of you. You need to let go of the need to favor one polarity over the other, and you need to get to the center of the universe. And if you can do that, then when you do pick up that pipe, when you do go into or run that sweat lodge, or when you do cry for that dream, you will be able to use these things effectively and really help a lot of people. And that's what this is all about. That's why we did ceremonies in the past. We didn't do the ceremonies to be spiritual people. We did them to help our own people. These things are really just tools for you to use to help out other people. Most of the time you will not need them to help yourself because you are balancing pretty well on that tightrope. It's all the other people, the people of your tribe or your community, who are always falling off the tightrope or shifting dramatically from one extreme to the next or one imbalance to the next. They are the ones that need your help. They're the reason that you should carry that pipe or go to or run those ceremonies. When I said in the beginning that no ceremony or object was more important than the heart behind it, you should now be seeing that those things are not important, and even you are not important, right? Helping other people that need help is all that's important. If you understand this, you will understand how self-centered and egotistical it is when someone says that they are spiritual. It's not about you. It's about everyone and everything around you. So who cares if you go within? Who cares if you are spiritual? What about everybody else? Before colonization, all tribal people lived much closer to the center of the universe. This was our culture. We were Ikche Oyate, right? Natural, genuine, real, authentic, sincere people. We were human beings, and this was our technology. We were not perfect, and yes, we had problems, and yes, we fought each other too, but we fought less often, and we were happier as people than people are in the world today. We were content and satisfied with our lives. We experienced joy and had fun with our families and our relations. We laughed and we danced and we feasted and played games, and we had genuine relationships with other human beings. And we felt connected to everything around us. This was our technology. And when you look around at this world today that's around us, isn't this what we need so desperately right now? Instead of right and wrong, better, worse, this side, that side, black, white, Democrat, Republican, who knows better than who? Don't we just need people to stop being sides and start being human? Don't we need people to connect to themselves, to each other, to the world around us, and to the magnificence of the cosmos? Connections aren't made with ideas or positions or titles. Connections aren't made with technological gizmos. Connections are made with humans being human and connecting eye to eye and heart to heart. Maybe you think I read all of this in some book or watched some YouTube video. I assure you that everything I've said has been my lived experience, and it's my daily life right now. It's not a belief, it's what I know. Just like I know when I'm standing outside and getting soaked in the rain. And this is not even mine, right? It was passed on to me by my mentors. And it was passed on to them by their mentors. And now I pass it on to you. So the stuff I'm telling you, it's not magical, it's not spiritual, it's not even special. It's Ikche, right? It's natural, it's sincere, it's genuine, it's authentic, and it's real. And this has been proven for generations upon generations using the indigenous scientific method. It's your life, young ones, and you can live in this big, dramatic, shifting back and forth way, or you can make tiny adjustments. It's your life to live. But you cannot help other people if you are making these, if all your attention is focused on your next big move. You gotta keep yourself from falling off the tightrope, and that means you gotta get balanced and centered and harmonious. You, next generation, are the sacred object. Your lives are the most important ceremony you will ever do. However, the greatest ceremony that you will ever do for others, for the world around you, is helping others to live in the center of the universe. You can't help them if you are struggling to keep your own balance. So get there, young ones. Help as many as you can. O hechitu alo, matakiase.